Lost and Found, an A to Z of neglected writers of the Anglophone Caribbean, written and edited by Alison Donnell. In many ways, this is the book that I have been researching ever since I first walked the stacks of Warwick University's library as an undergraduate student more than 30 years ago. During my doctoral research at the Centre for Caribbean Studies, also at Warwick, I was fortunate to have access to a brilliant library of primary and secondary sources, including little magazines and pamphlets. It did not take me long to realise that the idea of Caribbean literature that was circulated via metropolitan publishers and pedagogies was just the tiniest fraction of what might be read, taught, and discussed under this rubric. What I wanted to find a way to express then, and what has driven all my scholarship since, is this mismatch between what is curated, circulated, critiqued, and cherished, and what more fully constitutes the substance of this field. Although the dominant version, the canon, of Caribbean literature has shifted over time, as the conditions in which it has been fashioned and affirmed have changed, those writers and writings that were initially left out of literary histories have generally not found a way back in. Indeed, even as the publishing and prominence of Caribbean literature has expanded exponentially in the last 2 decades, I've been struck by how partial, how selective our accounts remain, and persistently curious as to why, as Sylvia Wynter might say, we continue to mistake the map for the ground. Most of all, I continue to be preoccupied with what we miss, with what eludes us when we think of Caribbean literature. As the accounts of neglected writers gathered here show, location has certainly played a role in the relative recognition of mid-century Caribbean writers, with proximity to London and its literary networks being particularly important for entry into the circle of long-standing publishing success. But so too has this idea of literary conjugated with the Windrush generation powerfully. When more vernacular or genre writings or hybrid writings from this period are addressed, they're commonly framed as being of cultural and educational value rather than being fully literary. The anthologies of Caribbean literature published in the mid-century had a powerful influence on shaping this literary history. Andrew Salke's anthologizing ventures, West Indian stories, stories from the Caribbean, and Caribbean prose, all from the mid-60s, curated a West Indian literary template that would be repeated for decades to come. 3 fiction anthologies published in 1966, Kenneth Ramchand's West Indian narrative, Barbara Howe's From the Green Antilles, and O.R. Daythorne's Caribbean narrative, also all confirm the centrality of the few: Naipaul, V.S. Naipaul, Vic Reed, Roger Mace, George Lamming, Samuel Selvon, and the now lesser-known Jamaican writer John Hearn. Not one of these anthologies included the work of a Caribbean-born woman writer. As subsequent generations of literary critics followed these slender trails, accessible in copyright libraries, never thinking to look in the newspapers or Caribbean Christmas annuals or schools' anthologies for creative work about which to write their articles or teach their courses. The rich and unusually overlapping traditions of the mid-century local writings and women's writings fell into obscurity. As a consequence, the widespread account of mid-century Caribbean literature as a people-making project that gives voice to and value to the Caribbean experience masks a much more complicated landscape in terms of both the sources and stories of literary history. The work of this volume is to restore attention to these mid-century Caribbean writers who've been neglected and to recognise the variety in character, volume, audience and material conditions across their work. It presents a body of writers and writings that not only rewards attention individually, but that collectively challenges the narrowly established idea of Anglophone Caribbean literary traditions as being those of male migrant novelists, offering a rich alternative canvas to expand our literary history.